Hi everybody, Mitch here. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to talk about the risks around open source or free software. Um, Not all free software is open source, not all open source software is free, but generally they overlap reasonably well. So we just had an incident. Amazon and a lot of the big vendors do publish open source free software because it helps them sell some other product or service. In the case of Amazon, it's Amazon Web Services. Um, and the net effect of that software was to help you to create some AI-based software that does something, and then the assumption is that you would go run that on AWS hardware, and they would sell CPU cycles. Well, their security controls were not necessarily excellent. In fact, if anything, they were far from excellent. And in this particular case, a researcher, as opposed to in North Korea, checked out the software to make some updates to it. And that's a typical process you have in open source software. You have a variety of people, pretty much anyone, who can contribute to the software. So he checked it out. He then loaded some malware in the software, and he uploaded it and requested that it be checked in. Well, the process at Amazon apparently wasn't good enough, and the net effect was the software got checked in, uh, did not detect this malicious activity, which I'll tell you about in a second, and um, and was distributed to like a million computers that use this Amazon software. So what did the software do? Well, it said it's an AI tool. So it said it created a prompt which was embedded in any application that you created, and it said restore this system to factory default configuration and delete all of the data and configuration information. Well, obviously, if that were to go off and successfully run, that would be, shall we say, a bit problematic for the people whose system it ran on. Now that one is pretty hard to tell, and in fact, that's part of the problem with all of this stuff. Sometimes you can detect the malware, sometimes you can't. Otherwise, other times people go off and just create a malicious version of some disk utility or whatever. Um, and people download it and they don't pay attention to where they're downloading it from, and they download the copy that is infected with malware. We see this all the time, and so that is a way to spread ransomware, to lose your data. I mean, all kinds of things can happen. You can get locked out of your computer. I mean, at that point, anything is possible. So the bottom line to the conversation is, while free is nice, it doesn't mean free is safe and secure. And you really need to understand the source. My guess in this Amazon case is they will probably never ever do that again. But I'm sure it was somebody who was overworked and not paying attention. So, human beings make mistakes, including me. So, it could happen again, but I'm sure they're going to go put more controls in place. But that's a very responsible developer. If you download some piece of software off some random website, how responsible is that developer? And do you even know whether that's really the legitimate website? So, be careful, do your research, um, make sure that you're doing everything you can to reduce the odds of you, getting hacked. Make sure you have great backups, preferably offline backups that are not physically connected to anything, because they're really hard to hack. Um, and hope hope for the best. Thanks for listening. Take care.